shipment. That'll be the subject of another unboxing video. I'll probably film today. And see where we stand. The only thing I worry about here is, yep, we're going to have to change our bolt. We weren't completely sure if this bolt was going to clear or not, but it appears now that we are definitely going to end up having to change that. So I will get on that immediately and we'll have her done. Alright, and since we are now going to have to disassemble the bolt, or at least the bolt body, so we can cut this, weld it and all that, what you do, notice I'm taking the scope off, and I did label the scope rings, so I know what was lapped where. I'll leave that. Hopefully someone will get it if they ever pull it apart later. What you do is, I'm going to dry fire it here. Well, I've got the safety on. If you there we go, my bad. If you, on this Spanish Mauser, this one, these cock on close, meaning that whenever you open your bolt, it does not cock. It's not until you actually close it that it cocks. Now, most of your German Mausers, as far as I understand, I'm no expert on these, but a lot of the other ones, like the 98s, this is a 96, they do, I don't know, 75, 80%, 85% of their cocking right here. Whenever you initially do this, that's where most of their cocking happens. A Mauser, again, is like that. Whereas this one, you see nothing really has happened here. And you can tell that it's not cocked because the firing pin is not protruding. In order to disassemble the bolt, not to get the bolt out, but to disassemble the bolt, you need to cock it, put your follower down, and you'll watch right here. From here to here is where this cocks. See that? That's cock on close. Now, you take and put your safety into the 12 o'clock position. This has to be done in order to disassemble the bolt. Now, and it has to be cocked in order to put the safety there. Now, you can remove your bolt, and with the safety in 12 o'clock position, you just take your bolt and start unscrewing it. There's no pressure on it, nothing. It just, very, very simple. There's the bolt body. There's firing pin, spring, all that. And with the extractor, you just need to rotate the extractor over here to where it is in the middle of those two lugs, and it just gets pushed. Very simply just gets pushed. I said very simply. I've actually already had this one off. There we go. You just push it right off the edge. You may have to lift on this just a little bit, and it comes off of there. You'll see you've got those little lugs right there. That fits right into there, into that slot. And for all practical purposes, there's our bolt body. And now what I'll be doing is I'll actually be cutting this somewhere right in here. I'll make a new bolt handle. What I'll probably do is try and utilize this. I don't know, we'll see exactly what I'm going to do. You'll know that when I get back. But anyways, what this will allow me to do is I'll be able to put the bolt back in. Well, I said I will. I'm a retard, I guess. Apologies to anyone that has a handicapped relative or whatever. I mean, I do not mean that in any ill way. Alright, well, I'll tell you what. I am not going to continue to do it that way because I'm afraid that if I continue to push that in there, that thing where it can free spin, that I may get it jammed in there and not be able to get it out. That'd be bad. So what I'll do is whenever I'm done welding, I'm going to test. I'll just take the extractor and quite simply throw it back on. Just like that. Now it cannot free spin, and in order to put it back in, the extractor needs to oppose this locking lug. Alright, so now what I'll be able to do is get my angles and everything, set the scope back on there, and I'll see what will and will not work. And we'll go from there, and I'll be back. There we go. Decently clean cut. And serial number is still intact. Of course, we'll clean that up. We'll actually do that right now, so it has less of a chance of scratching me as I test it. I'm just going to use old sanding block, nothing special. Just get the burrs off of it. There we go. All the wood dust falling off of this thing. It was just the first one I grabbed. This is Santa's wood dust here. This sanding block came with my multiple colored bench here that you see in all my videos. And anybody that didn't see the video whenever I got this, it actually came from Santa's workshop. Literally. A gentleman that plays, he's a professional Santa. Him and his wife were moving to a different place, and he wasn't going to have all his room for tools and everything in his workshop. And so Santa was having to downsize. So I picked this up off of Santa, and because of the story behind it, I decided to leave it the colors that it is. So you were wondering why I painted my bench all these colors. I didn't. I just left it there for nostalgic purposes. Since I want to keep the serial number intact, I'm going to cut the ball off, and I'll be using all of this. Every bit of it, but I got to get the ball loose from the rest of it first. And that last digit is awfully close. The reason I prefer to use the hacksaw over cutoff wheel, ziz wheel, or anything is because it doesn't have the heat. There's so many things you can change the temper of it, or the finish, or whatever. Go. And the plan is to reuse the same ball go. Now what I'll have to do is put an extension piece in between these to extend it out. Then I'll recontour it and put it on. Well, it ended up not recording. I guess I didn't hit the button. Sorry about that, guys. What I just did was I cut this piece here off of the bolt handle. It actually was sticking out just like that, and that's where the bolt handle was, and I went ahead and just cut it off. That's the amount that I'm bringing the handle in, and now I'll dress this up on the belt sander to finish dressing it and getting at least a preliminary angle that I want. Now what we've got here, this is where I've got my different angles at, where I've cut my piece. You see the piece that I just cut off was right here, roughly. So now I'm going to remove that. This piece will go right there. I'll put an extension for the ball here, and that'll be good. Now, what I'm going to have to work with, what is unknown right this second, is whenever I put the scope on, and I flip my bolt handle up, is that going to clear? It may not. I'm going to have to mess with it some to get it to. We're dealing with thousandths here. So what I'll probably have to do is give it even more of an angle. Which is going to cause problems with it hitting the wood. So you can see the issue here. We'll work on it a little bit here off camera. Angle's right. Now we're going to test out our angles here and see where we're at. I'm being very careful here as I file this to not nick anything up, just taking very small strokes. We've got a pretty aggressive rasp here, so I don't need to get too hard into it. Now we'll see where we stand. And like I said, this is nothing but process elimination, trial and error. So, keep on filing, and we'll be back. And what you can see here is that's just a rough cut, not anywhere near finished or anything, but beveled that out, dished it out, and I put an angle here. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to space this handle down. You see it was up there. I'm going to space it down. I've got it on that angle that's down on the bottom, and it's down in my channel. Now what I will do is I'll come in here with the TIG welder, and I'll come in here on real low power, and I'm just gonna put a little spot right here, just to hold it in position onto the bolt. Then I'll remove the bolt, or not necessarily even remove it right first, but what I'll do is once I have tacked that, just barely tacked it, then I'll rotate the bolt a few times and see if it's going to clear. And if it's not, then I know that I'll need to file a little bit more and dress these down just a little bit more. It's just process elimination. The extension for the bolt handle, it's just a piece of steel rod. And I went ahead, and while I had it long, beveled my edges and cleaned it all up to prepare it for welding. And I went ahead and just took it across the belt sander and let it spin and dress that up. Make sure that everything's good and clean for whenever I go to TIG weld it. Because with TIG welding, if you have any impurities in there, it'll make a terrible looking weld. I'm going to cut this what I know to be long. I'm sure that this is going to be too long, but that's okay. We'll adjust the length later. Well, there we go. Jump out. I should have known better. Get it a little closer so it won't have harmonics. You can tell I'm not as worried about this cut. Not at all. You can hear the tone. As you get almost to the end, you get that Bugs Bunny singing sword effect. Hear the tone dropping, tone dropping. The lower it gets, the closer you are to the end. A little tip for you there. You can see here, this is the new piece that's going to go in. It'll actually be shortened at some point in time here. This is the curve, and this is the ball. And that ball will go on the end there. This piece of aluminum I use as a heat sink whenever I weld, and because it's an angle, I can use it for making sure that everything's lined up. It's got this small angle channel right here for smaller stuff, and I can flip it over and I've got a larger channel there for larger stuff. Very handy to have around. You can melt the aluminum pretty easy, but for just little things like this, tacking it and stuff like that, it's nice to have it on a piece of angle where you can keep it in a channel, keep it all lined up, because that will line it up and align it on two different axes, and that's what you need, especially on round stuff. Here's how I've got this jigged up. Just got a clamp here that's holding the aluminum channeling onto my vise. Then I've got this piece of brass right here. I'm using this as a shim because the diameter of this piece here is smaller than of this, and so I want what is actually going to be the outside or the right hand side of the bolt handle and everything. I want that, the part you're really going to see, I want it to be all in the same line. It's okay if this is smaller than the bottom side because you won't really see that, and I can blend it in. But laterally this way, which is forward and backwards on the gun, is how it actually would be if you're looking at the side of the gun. I needed it to be lined up, and so I made a shim, and that shim will also help in wicking away any heat. And I have them both clamped. They're in the J channel, I've tapped everything down, and so the next step will be I'll go ahead and hit this with some brake parts cleaner to make sure that I don't have any oils or anything from my hands. spray it with brake parts cleaner, blow it off with shop air, spray it again, blow it off, do it a few times, make sure that I don't have any impurities in there, and then I'll weld it. Any of you guys that are a little more educated on the welding practices and everything, you notice I've beveled this edge but not the other one. The reason is because the serial number is so close to that edge on the top side. If I bevel it, I'll tear up the serial number. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to just TIG it up like that, and I'll be able to do it like this without damaging the serial number. There's other serial numbers on this gun. That's no problem. It's not like we're into legalities or anything. It's just that the bolt had a matching serial number, and we need to keep it that way. And so that's what I'm going to do. Found my gloves. See, I have certain gloves for different things. Whenever I'm TIGging stuff up, I have a different pair of gloves. And then if I'm ever TIGging something that's aluminum that's very, very important, or stainless or titanium, mainly aluminum though, I will use a brand new pair of gloves. But I keep my gloves in there to keep them clean, at least my TIG gloves. You never know what kind of impurities you're going to get from wherever. A little tungsten in there never hurt anyone. Got a little bit of a clean area down here. You want to skip a couple spots so you don't make it draw up. My helmet's kicking off. That's not good. Guess I need to turn my sensitivity up. I'm going to have to move it. Rotate it around. Clean it a little. laid a little weld on top of it there. We'll worry about washing it down here in a minute. And yet, once again, it's a monkey screw in a football. Everything tightened up. The other direction. We're just going to give it a tap, little tap there. That's all I want. Just tack it. Then it's in there and it's solid enough that I can go and test it out and everything, and then later on we'll run a bead all the way around and dress it and everything. I was chasing my pedal across the floor. It was moving on me. I don't hesitate to just heat up the weld and walk it around. I'm not trying to make it look like a pretty roll of dimes or anything, because I know I'm going to dress it down. I just want to get it on there and heat it up and let it sink down in there. Right there, I was worried about part of that serial number. I didn't want to heat it and get it too far out of whack there. So that's what the deal was with that. That's why it kind of looked like I was maybe faltering a little bit. See what we can do here. Just trying to wash it in there. What I'm doing there, in case any of you guys haven't TIG welded, you've got a pre and post flow on your argon gas there. The pre is what you'll hear. Here, you hear this? Hear that? That is me just barely hitting the pedal. I can adjust how long it will do that. When you first hit the pedal, before the spark starts, it will purge a little gas out. And if I kept the pedal down, then once it's purged for a certain amount of time, the spark would start. The post flow is once you've done it and you're using it, it's how long it runs after the pedal has been let off. And what that does is, the reason you hold it down there is that it helps it cool, but it also keeps it shielded while the metal's still molten. While that metal's molten, it's susceptible to oxygen and impurities in the air. That argon is that's why they call it a shield gas, because it's inert, meaning it has no impurities, it's been filtered, and it doesn't react to anything, and so the heat doesn't affect it. And so you flood that area, and it keeps all that molten metal from getting any impurities in it. And that's why you run the gas on it for a little while afterwards, to keep it protected while it's cooling down and it's passing from the molten stage back down to a solid. We'll let that cool and see about dressing it up a little bit. While that's cooling, I just wanted to show you here, this is what I've done in the meantime. What you've got here is this channel I've filed out by hand, and this is where the bolt handle is going to go, of course. This is the pad that I've dressed up and getting it ready to accept what I'm doing over there, and it'll look pretty good. I'm going to show you here. I believe this has been showcased in one of my older videos, but it was with a different camera. This Mauser, this is a bolt that I did. This is one of the first bolts that I ever did for custom bolt handles. This is for this Mauser, a quite custom Mauser, might I add. But anyways, this is what I did the twisted extruded look for it, and it turned out real good. So anyways, that's one of the options that I can do if someone wants, but I don't think they want that on this, so we're just going to make it straightforward and simple, and hopefully they'll be happy. And that's a rough idea of how it's going to sit in there. Of course, it'll be dressed up, and then the ball will go on here at a certain point. What the idea here is now Get the scope on. Get this on and let it ride it all the way back to here. Now back here is where the way this is going to be set up is this scope is going to have to be mounted like that, because back here at the back of its travel it's got too much slop, and there's almost no way for me to make this clear here and the scope back here entirely. What I've just done is I've held this up here. I'll get back to the scope mounting and everything here in a second, but I just put a line there, and we're going to start it right there and see how that does. I can always take material off, but if I cut it too short, I've screwed myself. Now, what I was saying about this and the mounting of the scope, back here this bolt's got a lot of slop, which means that I'm running into problems getting into clear here and here at the same time, because the more clearance I give it here, the more clearance I got to give it here. Now, whenever this bolt starts coming in here, when you start sliding it in, as soon as it gets to here, look at the difference in slop that it has versus back here. Once you get it down into here, you've got it's tight as can be. So as long as this scope is not mounted any farther back than right here, it's going to be just fine. But with the eye relief there, I can't imagine anyone needing this scope mounted any farther back. So we're going to be just fine there. So now, after I get this cut, we'll test out and see if this ball is going to be, if it's going to be in the right place. If everything seems good there, then we'll go ahead and we'll weld the ball on, and then after that's been welded on and these have both been dressed up, then we'll weld this to this. That way I can weld around here and everything without worrying about clearance issues or having it on the gun. It's just a lot better way of doing it. But all that stuff is going to happen tomorrow.